This is The World According to Jen and Carolyn.
All right, everybody. So as promised, this is Narcissistic Personality Disorder, a little sociopathy too. Yay!
What's more fun than that?
What's that?
What's more fun than that?
Very few things. Very few things. No, I know what's more fun. Dating one of these folks. So Carolyn and I are going to talk about some sad and scary narcissists that we've dated, as well as tips for not falling under the spell of these persuasive and abusive men. Now, we're going to be talking about men. Women can have NPD as well. I'm going to use NPD for short because saying narcissistic personality disorder over and over again is a lot for my tongue. But we're again talking about our experiences dating men because we're boring cis hetero women. So men.
And I went on one date with a woman.
That's true. You tried it once, and I appreciate that. I was raised by a lesbian, so I knew that held no appeal for me.
I just picked the wrong one.
You did pick the wrong one. I
kind of was a little bit of a narcissist.
That's true.
That's why it didn't work out.
That's true. Yes. So, I think you're right. We were both raised by parents with these traits. My mom had borderline personality disorder, but there was some narcissism in there for sure.
My dad for sure had some type of narcissism with maybe a little sociopathy. Lack of empathy going on there too.
So not surprising that we ended up at least once dating men with these characteristics. So, I've noticed, and maybe you've noticed too, that people really like to throw the term narcissist and narcissism around. And I get the distinct feeling that not everybody knows what they're talking about. So why don't you enlighten us, clinician Carolyn? Tell us what narcissistic personality disorder or narcissism is.
I'd love to. And actually, I will say too that most people within the mental health world, sadly, also don't know what this term is. And the information we're often receive, at least in my scholarly work, wasn't always, I think, the most kind to people with personality disorders. And I think that's also a very different way of seeing any disorder as something self-imposed. In American culture, we tend to be like, well, it's your fault, like deal with it. And if you can't figure it out, like too bad. So I really do think that clinicians, in addition to the public, we see this term on Instagram. We see this in reels. We see like, oh, are you dating a narcissist? So, let's put this in some containment here. So there are 5 types of what we call narcissistic personality traits. There is only one narcissistic personality disorder.
That makes sense.
So probably what you're actually seeing is narcissistic traits in the form of 5 different kinds: overt, covert, antagonistic, communal, and malignant.
Okay.
So, again, this very definitive mental health condition of narcissistic personality disorder means someone with NPD, it's not a choice. They probably cannot change. They probably have gone through significant trauma, possibly other things, and this is a survival skill to them.
Okay.
They're probably not even going to go into to select help. Because if you truly are a narcissist with
you don't think you need help.
You don't need help.
I'm perfect.
So again, this is when it truly is a personality disorder, you see this pervasively across all areas of life.
Okay.
So like I said, sadly, most mental health professionals, also in my personal opinion, tend to be a little narcissistic themselves at times. There are some of us out there that are that way. They have the savior complex, or they think, they can really help everyone, which is very sweet. But, we really have to make sure that as a mental health community, we're always doing right by ourselves and doing right by our clients and making sure we're educated. So, for the purpose of this, the next portion's really about narcissism as a trait.
Okay.
And this is something that you're going to see as adaptive or maladaptive. So anything in mental health can always, there's healthy narcissism. I would say you and I have a very healthy dose of narcissism.
Yeah.
We're adaptive with it. It's helpful to us. It gives us self-confidence. Yes. It makes us kind of not really give a shit what someone else thinks because we know what we're doing feels right for us.
Right. So we look good doing it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Narcissist. Maladaptive would be where obviously it's unhelpful. So research is also seeing a lot of mental health conditions as a spectrum. And I think that's really also research, neurobiology, understanding how nature and nurture impact someone.
Yeah.
So, this is something where you're going to see someone with these traits and you want to make sure that you're categorizing them as the specific type because that does influence what they can and can't do.
Maybe he's born with it. Maybe it's narcissism. That's all that was running through my head when you said nature nurture.
What is that from?
Maybelline. Now, Maybelline's going to sue us, but no, they won't
Maybe
listen.
It's Maybelline.
Maybe it's narcissism.
Maybe it's narcissism. Yeah. All right. So
we're going to sing a lot on this.
All right. So here's what you're going to see with different traits. Extreme self-focus, an inflated sense of self, a strong desire for recognition and praise.
Okay.
Those are usually inherent traits that you're going to see on that spectrum. And like I said, it goes from pretty benign and adaptive to pretty toxic.
Okay.
So let's talk about overt narcissism first. So this is someone who has what we call the big 9. These are 9 traits that
I like big 9. I think it's a different big 9.
You're a pervert.
Go into your big 9.
So overt narcissisms are grandiose. It's going to be pretty obvious. They are outgoing, arrogant, entitled, overbearing, very exaggerated sense of self, love being praised, center of attention. They can be a little exploitative.
I can't say that shit either.
I know.
Exploitative. Exploitative.
Competitive. And this is the big one, lacking empathy. They usually feel pretty good about themselves and they're usually not comfortable with what we would call uncomfortable emotions. It's not that they don't have them. They just kind of don't sit in them as long as you and I might.
Got it.
Especially me, sadness, worrying, loneliness.
Yeah.
You're usually not anxious when you're a narcissist. You're kind of on top. You're king of the world.
Wow.
Or queen of the world.
We're a narcissist.
It's very lonely.
Sure beats anxiousness.
It sure does though. It's true. But overt narcissists, they overestimate their abilities, intelligence. And, I think this is one we probably see pretty commonly.
Yeah.
The second one too, covert narcissism. And I apologize that I don't have actual stats. I think this is a hard one to get from the psychology world.
No, it makes sense. Like you said, so few of them seek therapy. So how do you quantify it?
Well, and there is no DSM code for a narcissistic trait.
Interesting.
And we're told we have to diagnose people.
What the DSM is?
The DSM is the Diagnostical Statistics Manual. That's in its 5th edition. It's a lovely guide, but I personally was taught not to read too much into this, especially as a licensed marriage family therapist. I'm not a doctor. I really don't. I make what's called provisional diagnosis, where I might see something, go, hey, it's seeming like some of these things. Honestly, I don't typically work with people who have true DSM diagnoses.
Okay, I see.
That's not my forte.
Not your specialty.
Not really. So covert narcissism is something that I think actually you and I are more familiar with too. This is the person who might come off a little bit depressed and self-loathing. They tend to be what we call the brittle narcissist. I've also heard it vulnerable narcissism or closet narcissism. You're in the closet. But this is a sad one because it usually does have a lot of trauma and abuse related with it. The people who are more covert, they don't necessarily fit that overbearing, grandiose pattern. They tend to have really low self-esteem.
I see.
They might experience anxiety, depression, shame, more introverted, insecure, low self-confidence, defensive, avoidant. They tend to, though, what you'll always feel, though, is they're always the victim. They're always, it's like you just
it's everybody else's
it's
fault.
Everyone else's fault. They just can never get ahead if they've tried to. They're just not self-aware, not self-reflective.
All right.
That's my type. Because I can
love
help
a brittle narcissist, right?
Let
Are
me
you dark
you.
and broken? You're my kind of man.
Let me show you what my love can do and show you about yourself.
I can be your hero, baby. I told you we're going to sing a lot.
Oh, this one for sure.
So bad.
Well, and I think this is another hallmark of the covert is criticism.
Yeah.
They cannot accept criticism.
Okay.
The latter two are going to be a little bit more rare.
Okay.
You know, I think for the average person. Antagonistic narcissism, this person, now we're getting more into like sociopathy levels.
Cool.
This person's fucking arrogant. They might take advantage of people. They compete with others. They're very disagreeable. Communal narcissism is another type. Again, it's very about, you might see this in politics or religious organizations. It's all about fairness and like, hey, I'm doing this for altruistic reasons. Like I'm doing good things.
Got it.
Get on my level.
Yeah, yeah.
And then worst of the worst is malignant narcissist. This is someone who is vindictive, aggressive. This is almost like you might see it going into borderline.
Okay.
They are paranoid. They are toxic.
Yeah.
You are not going to change them.
Yep.
That is
like
a hard one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yep.
That's and we might ebb and flow back into that, but that's kind of the general thing. So again, when you say the term narcissist, that's a lot of different variations on a spectrum.
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me that folks don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I took as much of that as I could in. And I definitely think that this dude I dated falls into more of the brittle narcissist category. So about 6 weeks after I dated the failure to launch guy, I started dating a guy we're going to call Seamus. This guy has money and can afford lawyers, so we definitely need a pseudonym for this guy. This guy was a literal genius, extremely attractive. I watched him solve a Rubik's Cube in like under 30 seconds. It was phenomenal. Confident, an up-and-coming tech mogul. It is San Francisco after all. And this dude definitely had NPD or sociopathy. And he even said to me at one point when things started going south, which happened pretty quickly, that he didn't want to go to therapy because he was worried that he was going to be not only diagnosed a sociopath, but locked up. Like that still happens. Like we have any place to lock anybody up in San Francisco. So he was well aware of what was going on with him. So
interesting.
Yeah, it was fascinating. So I met this guy in a bar during the 2010 World Series. Again, we're San Francisco people, big Giants fans. And at the time, the Giants had a player named Cody Ross, and Cody Ross was hot. And so I
love this story.
I was like 29. Although I think I'd probably say
you
this
would
now.
say this today.
I would say this
Don't
now.
lie.
I said something like, I want Cody Ross inside of me. Some ploy for attention, right? And Seamus answered the call. We started dating immediately because he was a classic kind of sociopath, narcissistic personality disorder type where shit got really deep really fast. And I think that's kind of a hallmark.
That is a hallmark.
Yeah.
Love bombing.
Love bombing. Yes. So he love bombed my ass hard.
Which to someone like us feels like, oh, they're committing.
Yes.
Or this is great.
Yeah, 50 Shades of fucking Grey, where, we're like, oh, that's such a grand gesture of love. And then now, as a 41-year-old woman, I'm like, this motherfucker's scary.
Too soon, too fast.
Yeah, and this guy was very similar to Mr. Grey, and he would show up at my door unannounced. You want to know how he was able to get into my apartment building, which required a code to get in?
Oh, God.
He watched me put the code in once,
my God.
committed it to memory, and would therefore let himself in whenever and show up at my door. So yeah, a lot of red flags. Told me he loved me within, I think, 3 weeks. 3 weeks.
Wow.
Way too fast. So, lots of red flags in retrospect. And he had 2 kids, 2 little boys. He was young too. I was 29. He was 25. He already had 2 kids. He was from a small town, but, and 29, I was like, okay, whatever.
It happens.
I'm not accustomed to this, but I think I'd make a pretty good stepmom. So,
Step monster.
A step monster. So I went with it.
Yeah.
But I got to hang out with him and his kids once. And he was so awful to his eldest kid, who was about 5, who was about my kid's age. So, now as a parent, I look at that. And I mean, at the time I was disgusted, but as a parent, I'm really disgusted. Yeah. So treated the eldest son like crap, treated the young son like like gold. And I could tell why he treated the eldest one poorly. It's because this kid looked like him, behaved like him.
There's a self-loathing.
Yes, self-loathing dude. And so it broke my heart to see him, emotionally abuse this child. And as a parent, again, it's even more disgusting. So now I'm married to a guy who literally brings us wine during our podcast.
Thanks, husband.
Yeah, total 180 from the narcissist.
What a mensch.
He is a mensch. He is. He's a scholar.
Why is mensch
A
coming
gentleman and a
up
scholar.
so often lately?
It really does.
I hadn't heard the word ever in my life until a couple weeks ago. Now I've heard it multiple times.
Aw,
Right?
It's a good word.
It's a reoccurring theme.
I do
And it
like
definitely
It means
describes
a good
you.
person in Jew.
Okay. Get
Jewish
the fuck out of here.
terms.
I love you. So, this guy was married to his job as well. And I can't say what app he ended up working for, but just know this is a household name.
Wow.
It's a multi-billion-dollar app. I went to their 100,000th user party,
Yeah.
100,000 user party. There was like 6 of us there, maybe 8.
Wow.
And now this is a friggin' household
Wow.
name. So
When I can see you liking someone like this because it comes off like, ooh, they're driven.
yes,
They're successful.
Yes.
They're intelligent. And
I
that's
love a driven
everything
person.
I would say about you. And
Thank you.
And so it almost feels like, oh, this is good.
yes, yeah. In the beginning, it was all positive
Yep.
attributes,
Absolutely.
right? And like I said, a complete departure from the dude I was with before.
Yeah.
So I was all in on this motherfucker, and I feel like he owes me some money. When he got offered this job with the app that shall not be named, he asked me, should I take this job, once in a lifetime opportunity, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, take it. So I feel like he owes me some money because he's
Absolutely.
a multimillionaire now. I'll take, if you're listening, Seamus, I'll take $500K. We'll call it pain and suffering. You put me through hell. So this guy, he used to get jealous and weird when I joked around with his roommate. So he had 2 roommates. I got along with both of them. One I got along with really well. And so we'd be chilling in the living room, like smoking hookah because fucking tech
gross.
bros. Yeah. Who keeps a hookah in their house?
No, I haven't had a hookah since I was 19.
I know. So anyway, if it's part of your culture, I get it. If you're white
Does nothing
boys
for me.
who work in tech, you don't need a fucking hookah in your house.
No.
So, we'd be hanging out in the living room, and then this guy would just like hit a breaking point. He didn't like me hanging out and talking with his roommate, and he'd go into his room, crawl into bed, turn out the light, and not speak to me.
Oh.
Yeah, and I was so insecure. I
how
wouldn't be
sulky.
like, right? So dark and broken.
Mhm.
He also referred to himself as dark and broken. We'll get to that. But yeah, at this point I'd be like, yeah, bye. Like this is behavior I'm not going to tolerate.
Yeah.
It's abuse.
Yes.
I didn't call it abuse at the time, but I recognize now and right after I left the relationship, like this dude's abusive.
Yeah.
And so, he treated me like trash on my 30th birthday. And I don't know what's up with
What's
me.
wrong with you?
And
But that's 2 years in a row.
it was 2 years in a row. I know. I had such bad PTSD when I got with my husband. I was like, oh God, something bad's going to happen. And of course, like, my husband, the exact opposite, had just gotten over neurovirus, shitting and vomiting, and dragged himself. He still was not 100%. Dragged himself out to the champagne bar and smoked cigars with us all night and treated my friends well. I was like, this is how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
But Seamus, nope. He treated me really bad. Again, picked a fight over jealousy, silent treatment, most awkward dinner of my life. And this is when he referred to himself as dark and broken, which has now become a joke between me and my husband. Marry someone you can make fun of your exes with. And the gaslighting. The gaslighting was constant.
Yeah.
I could do nothing right. I was a reasonably confident person. Like, I just come out of a relationship with a failure to launch guy, but I had my shit together. I put myself through school. Like, I'd always taken care of myself. Like, I always had jobs.
Absolutely.
But I could do nothing right. He tore me down constantly. And anytime that I would walk away and be like, I've hit a breaking point, he would work really hard to act nice and healthy and lure me back in.
Look at this cycle.
Yes.
Honeymoon.
Yes.
Then tension.
Yep.
And then explosion.
Yep. He was...
But would he get angry or he'd sulk?
Sulk.
Yeah.
It was never... I don't think I ever saw him what we'd call angry.
So he's definitely that maladaptive, covert narcissism, but with some of that antagonistic tendencies, for sure.
Oh, totally, totally. He liked the fight. He liked me to withdraw and go away. And he liked the process of luring me back in. It was really sick, really fucked up shit. And so, eventually we had only dated for maybe 6 or 7 months. Things hit ahead around Father's Day. And, I knew he was going to fuck it up because he was a terrible dad. And so, the night before Father's Day, I was like, hey, when you get back from seeing your kids, I'll take you to dinner.
Yeah.
And he was like, all right, fine. But he was acting, all dark and broken, typical Seamus. And I was like, this motherfucker's going to flake. And so I was at a bar with my really good friend the night before. And he was like, fuck it. Come with me up to, this camp that I've worked at for years and went to as a kid. And, I want you to come hang out by the pool with me. And I was like, yeah.
How long have you two been dating at this point?
No, we weren't technically together at this point. It was like we had broken up, but we weren't. Yeah, it was.
There's always these like weird, like off and on things with these guys too. I feel
like it was over, but there was still some kind of communication. Like at this point, I hadn't seen him in probably a month. Like,
interesting.
It was over. I think I forgot to mention that. And so I went up with my friend. And we were sitting by the pool. It was great. San Francisco summer is absolutely abysmal, like freezing. Mark Twain didn't actually say this, but it's attributed to him when it's like the coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco. That shit is true, but it's not Mark Twain.
I had no idea.
It's not Mark
Interesting.
Twain. I know. Mark Twain said some sassy ass shit. He did not say that.
All right.
But anyway, I was like, this is great. It's 90 degrees. I'm sitting by a pool. Over walks my husband who ran the summer camp at the time. I asked my friend, who's that guy? He told me. The rest is history. And so thanks to this, Patrick Bateman motherfucker, I met the love of my life. So it all worked out. The road to suffering. But
knowing you as I've known you, I have, and we'll talk about this later, I have such a hard time believing you would ever let someone treat you like that.
I know. I
think that's, and also no one's having a good time.
Yeah.
I don't believe that someone who's doing this likes what they're doing. I think they get off on it because it's how they survive and they don't know anything different.
Interesting.
And so when you try and correct them or give them other options, they either dissociate or they implode because they can't tolerate that. This is how they've kept connections or kept people from fucking with them.
Yeah.
And so, I mean,
no, it's all a defense mechanism, right? Like,
I think that's the biggest thing that we're finding is how much of a trauma narrative there's usually something that happened to them or around them or it's all attachment based, but they just cannot have what you and I would call a functional, healthy relationship.
Well, it was interesting because this guy treated his eldest kid like crap. Yeah. And his biggest issue with his parents, who on the outside seemed perfect, very wealthy, very generous people. But he would say that they treated him like shit and treated his youngest sister like she was the queen.
Oh, look at
and then he replicated the same behavior. I don't know what beyond that happened. They put on a good front, right?
Yeah.
I went for Christmas and it was like something out of a fucking Hallmark movie.
I bet.
So I don't truly know what happened.
Can't be good.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, goddamn, Get Out.
Yes. Oh my God. I was just thinking that. We were like,
except
I'm from South City. This is weird.
Right. Yeah. Everybody there was white too. But yeah, it was interesting. So I couldn't pinpoint exactly what happened to him, but it was evident that something happened to him. Yeah. And this must have been some sort of like coping mechanism.
How awful. I'm so glad you're out of that.
I know. And it all led to something good, right? Yeah. So, all's well that ends well, I guess.
Well, fuck that. Because I've certainly paid my fucking dues.
I bet you have.
Where's my end? Jen, I want to tell you about someone we're going to call the King of the Avenues.
I like it. Again, a San Francisco
reference here. And, this will be interesting because I don't think I included you in a lot of this information because I knew if I would have told you half the bullshit that was going on in this relationship, you would have been honest with me. Yeah. And I could, at that time, I didn't want to hear honesty. I wanted people to feel sorry for me.
Nobody who's in it really wants the honesty.
No. And that's a whole nother realm. But let me tell you about the King of the Avenues. Yeah. So, you have to know this about me. I was basically a serial girlfriend from the ages of 15 to 20. Several years later of sowing my wild oats of my 20s. I literally, Jen, have journals of my vicarious romps and places and dudes with names, dudes with no names, like Tahoe guy or
when we actually have Patreons. Those are going to be your special episodes. Carolyn reading her journals.
Oh, it's going to be so fucking sad. But anyway, so I call them the scars of my youth because they're from my youth. I have no regrets, you know. So anyways, at this time, I'm 29 years old. I've, you know, been dating off and on. But I'm hell bent, you know, again, I'm 29. I'm like, ooh, I got to get married, get pregnant, live out this whole, you know, fucking healing fantasy I have for myself. You know, so I have this timeline in my head. And so, you know, I meet this guy on OkCupid, which OkCupid was like the cool place to go. Is that
still around?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But it was sort of like the alternative to Tinder and like, you know, it was a little, it was still free.
Tinder, yeah.
I think it was around this, like, I don't even know if Tinder was that big yet, to be quite honest. But here should have been my first red flag. He wouldn't go out with me because I lived in the marina.
Tell people about the marina, Carolyn.
The marina is probably the most beautiful, one of the highlights of San Francisco. It's very beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
But there is a type.
Go to the Palace of Fine Arts. This is where the marina is.
Yeah.
Where the World's Fair of whatever fucking year it was.
19-something. I should probably know that.
Was held.
But it's a beautiful place. Yes. It's lovely. But there is kind of a... It's like the Isla Vista is to Goleta and Santa Barbara, you know. Yeah. So he, you know, so he didn't want to go out with me because he said I lived in the marina. And my response back was, fuck you, motherfucker. I'm from the Sunset. Yeah. Go fuck yourself. Because I knew he was from the city. I didn't put that on my page. But I was like, any real San Franciscan would never talk shit to another San Franciscan like that. Yeah. So that apparently impressed him.
Oh.
Anyway.
They have all these like
weird fucking rules.
Like challenges and rules and like tests that you have to pass, right?
It was very strange. Well, whatever I wrote about like not like being someone who lives in the marina, but like not a marina girl. Yeah. And let's be honest, I fucking am a marina girl. If I'm really going to be honest with it.
Not entirely.
But anyway, so we match. I really did feel an instant chemistry connection with his profile and like an instant like, ooh, I'm really into this guy. Like what he's about. So we meet at Ocean Beach. He brings his dog. We sit, instant chemistry, attraction. We're both born and raised in San Francisco, which is a thing. I do tend to like to date Bay Area people. We just have a lot in common. But it was kind of, the date was a little weird because it was followed by the quote interview that you often have on a date. So looking back at this interview, I see all the codependency fixtures and red flag, you know, basically like he's showing me red flags. I'm like, ooh, red. I love red. I'll run right towards us. So he tells me his mom just recently passed away from cancer. He's moved back with his grandma on, you know, fucking Lake Street. I'm all, dude, fuck you. You're on fucking Lake Street.
Lake Street's pretty fancy, y'all. It's a very nice part of the city.
Like, you know, there's like streets of the city where it's like there's a dodgy end and then like really nice. And Lake Street's nice throughout. You're not going to find a weird spot on Lake Street. But anyway, you know, so he's telling me this. He told me he's a recovering alcoholic, but he never actually went through recovery. Crashed his motorcycle. He's deaf in one ear because of this. Almost died, and that's why he stopped drinking. He's recently out of an engagement.
Oh boy.
And he's only a high school grad, but he wants to go back to school. He wants to become a contractor. He wants to get licensed. Yeah. He's an adrenaline junkie. He loves to surf. So I'm thinking, hey, second chances over here. People deserve a second chance. Anyway, he's a nice dude. So again, the speed, similar with yours. We were in a committed sexual relationship within the first week. That relationship, we never really were boyfriend, girlfriend. 8 months later, we broke up because he said he wasn't good enough for me. He said, you need things and want things. I can't give them to you. And it's not possible. Yeah. But of course, we off and on dated for 5 years, Jen. 5 years. And we usually would hook up and then start kind of getting back into it. But he never said I love you to me.
Oh my God.
Ever. 5 years.
5 years?
This, as I read this, it makes me feel more sad about myself than it does frustration with him, because I would never let someone treat me like this now. No, never said I love you. Never looked at me in the eyes during sex. Could not make eye contact. When we finally did break up, he made sure to let me know that it's because I gained weight. That he probably would have been able to stay in it longer if I had not gotten so fat.
Oh, what a piece of shit.
Yeah.
God damn it.
And I'm happy to say that was the message where I went, and I'm fucking done. And thank you so much for actually being a dick to me, because now I'm done.
I'm glad you had a breaking point. I'm sorry it took so long.
Well, but I think for me, this is not an isolated incident with that kind of guy. These masculine as fuck dudes with BD energy, Jen, they got that big dick energy. But intensely brittle, if so insecure, needed so much praise, so much reassurance. During that entire relationship, I was constantly walking on eggshells with his moods.
Yeah.
He'd be out of nowhere, fucking irrationally angry. I'm like, dude, you're fucking living rent free at your goddamn grandma's house on Lake Street. What the fuck do you have to be so fucking unhappy about? Nothing was ever good enough. One of the worst stories I can tell is it was about a month and we were at Starbucks, and this sweet young man with Down syndrome who was working at Starbucks was sweeping and closing up for the night. And this fucking king of the avenues starts getting mad because the young man was sweeping out into the street where we were sitting. And he goes off at this guy. Why are you, don't you see me and my girlfriend are sitting, he actually called me his girlfriend at that point. We're sitting here and later the kid walked away and I'm like, yo, he has Down syndrome. Like, you can't talk to people like that. And then he actually got mad.
To anybody like
you don't
that.
Talk to anyone.
Yeah,
but he got mad at me for not telling him that.
It's always somebody else's
Always my fault. So we'd have these really high mood swings. Apparently I didn't eat off my fork correctly. I would slide the fork against my front teeth when I ate, which bothered him.
Oh my God.
Incessantly. And if I did it, he would get irrationally angry at me.
Dude, living like that is so bad for you psychologically and physiologically. Like, I'm having a bodily, bodily reaction because I remember what it felt like to walk on eggshells.
I feel nauseous
in my
when I
relationship.
think about it.
It's awful. You can't be your authentic self. If you are your authentic self, you're judged mercilessly. It's awful. They make you feel like you need them. Yes, it's never safe. It's never comfortable. You can never truly be you. It's awful.
Well, and I think that's really what gaslighting is. I was in a constant state of confusion in this relationship. He also really hated, he would praise me for being so light and pleasant and in a positive mood, but then he'd also hate when his friends or other people would enjoy me for that very same reason.
Same thing I went through.
People would,
because you're just for him. That, you know, it's more like patriarchal bullshit, like we discussed at the end of the last episode. Like, not just children, but women should be seen and not heard. And you know, the way you act is for him and him only. And behind closed doors.
Well, and if I was friendly, I was flirting.
Oh, geez.
Or I shouldn't smile at the guy that we pass by. I fucking smile at everyone because I'm a nice person who likes to connect. But that was emasculating to him. It was rude. It made him feel like he was going to get cheated on again, like all his fucking shit. So, you know, but similar thing, I was nice to his friends, and I've always been told that that's a nice thing when your friend,
your man who's secure, is going to like that. Is going to say that was when I first started dating my husband and I got along with his brother and his friends. He was over the moon.
Why don't you? Wouldn't you want me to get along with your friends?
Yeah, you want people to like your girlfriend. And you know, vice
he couldn't stand it. It made him feel left out. He didn't like when I talk about my education because it made him feel left out. Just all these things, you know. And so again, you know, I would complain to my friends who were also, and my mom, who also were we were all dating people all over the place. But I really completely lost myself and my sense of anything I was doing. And what I really noticed about myself in this type of dynamic is I would try and worm my way into his life in every way possible. So that I could feel like I was part of it. He never would reciprocate that back. And then I would feel awful.
He did not want to know your friends. He did not want to know your family. It was the same thing for me.
You know, and just very toxic of me. And I have to take my own personal responsibility with this. But I was also young. And, you know, I was just constantly trying to show him that look how nicely I'm treating you. This is how I want you to treat me. Like, just model what I do. For his birthday, because he had terrible birthdays, I got him this beautiful, like, antique photo of Talak Mountain, which is in Fallen Leaf Lake in Lake Tahoe, which is where he and his family had a cabin. I got him this beautifully framed photo. He got me a dartboard.
What the fuck, man?
Now, in his defense as a dude, we did play darts, and I said, this is really fun. So he just put 1 + 1 together and went, oh, she liked darts and had fun. It's her birthday. I'll get her a dartboard.
But it's not a sentimental, thoughtful
those types of things.
Do you know that my husband met Nicolas Cage at Fallen Leaf?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Every time I hear Fallen Leaf, that's all I think about.
I have to find out that
his
story.
His friend, the sexy dad we all know and love, his family has a cabin in Fallen Leaf.
I think I refer to him as butt sex dad.
We won't go into why, but you have never had butt sex with him. It was a conversation.
No,
yes.
I just talk about
he's a good man. Good married man.
He smiled and laughed at my dumbness.
He entertains. Yeah, he suffers our shit with a smile. But anyway, yeah, big digression. But his family has a cabin up there, and I don't know how it happened, but the producers of City of Angels.
Oh yeah, that's right, because I was filled up in Tahoe.
It was filmed at his family's cabin.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, and so he was like, hey, to my husband and a couple other people, you want to come meet Nicolas Cage and Meg Ryan?
I want to ride my bike with my arms up in the air
until a truck hits me. Oh my God. If you know, you know.
Spoiler alert.
But anyway, every time I hear Fallen Leaf, I just think of my husband meeting Nick Cage, who apparently was a wonderful guy. A mensch.
Yeah. Well, and this is something that I don't think you did in your story, but I'll admit it. I went psycho. I would he wouldn't respond to my text. I would text him and then drive by his house.
Oh no.
To see, because he'd be working on his car, and I would drive by because I was like, I know you're home. I know you're not texting me. I mean, I went crazy. I would look through his phone. That's how I found out he was still dating other people, which I couldn't get mad at, apparently, because we weren't really together. We never recommitted after we got back together.
Oh, the things that we take. I would breadcrumbs.
Snoop in his room. I would cook and clean and do all this weird ass 1950s shit to prove to him how I could make myself so good for him. It's so gross to me.
Oh my God.
But I have so much sympathy and empathy for my younger self.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we grow.
Yeah.
You live, you learn. Some Alanis. Alanis is always appropriate.
Yes.
So we've both had some really devastating, we've recovered fortunately, but relationships with narcissists or people with narcissistic personality disorder. Now, I have to ask, can you be in a healthy, functional, loving relationship with a narcissist? Because I did some research on the stats, and according to Psych Central, approximately 5.3% of the U.S. population has been diagnosed with NPD. How many is 5.3%, you might ask yourself? That's over 17 million people. And like the narcissists that I dated, and like you and I discussed, a lot of folks who have NPD don't go to therapy. Yeah. And therefore haven't received a formal diagnosis. So I'm willing to believe there's a lot more than 17 million walking amongst us.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
Tell me, can you have a functional relationship with one of these folks? It's a loaded question.
Do I want to? Fuck no.
Hell no.
I think, can you have a functional relationship with anyone? Absolutely. If they're willing to be an open, honest, committed vessel that reciprocates and receives. And I think that if you're trying to do that with someone who either has narcissistic traits or has NPD, why, again, everyone deserves a chance. Yeah. And again, I don't think that, knowing what we know about trauma, knowing what we know about people, I think shit happens, and I've certainly gone through phases where I've had second chances, but I've put in the effort to grow. So, if you're able to basically, if you could separate any sense of your own self-esteem and accept that this person may just stay this way, then sure, it's possible. Is that healthy? I don't think so. No. I don't think the Dalai Lama himself would want to deal with that, because why? Yeah. Why should you? But then I look at us, and we did. What was our goal?
Well, I think our goal was simply to be loved, and we just happened to pick the wrong people who, I'm not going to say they were incapable of love, but they were incapable of loving us the way that we needed to be loved. And most people in search of a functional, healthy relationship, and I know those are, there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
You know, folks who are in search of those types of relationships, you're not going to find it with people like this.
No.
So I remember, what's the thing you just got in the mail?
I get these mailers out constantly for continuing education, but you can, hey, if you want to date a narcissist, you can go take this course for $900 for survivors of narcissists.
Oh God.
And if, again, you are considered a survivor, if
just
you get out alive.
Yeah. Just the fact that that's out there tells you that being in a relationship with a narcissist is probably not a good idea.
Well, they're not going to be in a healthy relationship. There's going to be give and take. Of course, there's going to be selfishness. Of course, there's, you know, you're your own individual self. And people might disagree with this, but being in a monogamous relationship is difficult, especially if the older you get and you do get set in your ways. But you want a healthy relationship to be revolving around self-reflection and basically having those peaks and valleys not be so high and not be so intense. Yeah. You know, so you might have, you know, little roller coaster, but you don't want the fucking loop-de-loop of all fucking roller coasters.
All relationships are work.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm in what I would consider to be a healthy, functional, loving relationship. And it's work every day. But with a narcissist or somebody who has narcissistic personality disorder, that feeling of walking on eggshells that so often is a component of these relationships, that feeling of being gaslit and being told that it's always your fault. There's something wrong and it's you. Always. That's a hallmark of folks who have this particular personality disorder.
Well, narcissists don't tend to date other narcissists.
No. Why would
they tend to date empaths.
Yes.
Like you and I.
Yeah. I'm
codependent, or recovering codependent. You know, but you mentioned something before, this toxic state of stress it will kill you.
It will.
And again, being someone who can say I was in that and it took me a long time, but when I was done. Yeah. And you know, I even remember saying to my therapist, how the fuck did you listen to me complain about that shit?
In retrospect, you're like, God damn, I know. That was annoying. Well,
but you know, there was a point where I wasn't even telling her
it's about
the truth. Yeah. Because I knew in my gut that what I was doing was not good enough for me. Yeah. And that it made people feel uncomfortable.
You're selling yourself short
when I would talk about this. And she said, I knew that at some point and this is an AA term, you know, when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And, you know, but I really notice with clients and even with friends, they never think that the person they're dating has these traits, as if
when you're in it. When you're in it, it's hard to see, right? But listen,
they had a really hard time. You know, his mom died.
Yes. Well, they're really good at pulling you in and making and drawing on the empath in you. Yeah. That's why it's so imperative that they date somebody like me and somebody like you, who has like boundless empathy.
Yes.
You know,
to a fault.
Yeah. Exactly.
Not anymore, but now I'm a jaded ass.
I'm a hater. Bitch. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, this really will actually physically shorten your life. You cannot maintain that level of stress and feel good. Yeah. So again, I think the real question is, are there a lot of narcissists out there, or are there just a lot of men and women willing to put up with shit in an effort to not be alone? Yeah. Give people second chances and have empathy for where they're from, not be willing to listen to their friends. And basically you just find that you get more and more. I mean, I don't know if this was for you, but I was isolated in that relationship.
Your role gets small because that's another tactic they use. They separate you from your friends. And I think this is a good stopping point where we can talk about the red flags, because it's all the things that we've been talking about rolled into 5 handy dandy tips. So, you know, beware of dudes who come on too strong. Yes. I would say don't walk away from a motherfucker who comes off as obsessive. Like, do not fall into the trap of thinking movies like 50 Shades of Grey is romantic. That shit is not romantic.
And really anything portrayed in Hollywood.
Yes.
That home of #MeToo.
Right.
Home of, I don't even know.
Don't let that be your guide.
It's not it's not romantic.
It's
It's
not.
obsessive.
Yeah.
And it's controlling.
Yes, controlling. Absolutely.
And it's an effort to win you over and make themselves look good.
Yeah.
Not truly do something genuine.
Well, it's to win you over to control you.
Yep.
Not to love you,
Yep.
but to control you and to have you, you're a puppet, dude, for lack of a better term. So, know when you're being gaslit too. It's hard. Again, when you're in it, it's really
Yes.
hard. But are you with somebody who constantly makes you feel like you're wrong and or going crazy when you express your feelings? And you constantly feel like you're apologizing for shit just to ease the tension and make them feel better? If so, this person's a fucking chump.
Absolutely.
This is a cycle. It's going to continue to happen. Yep. Keep your eye out for it. Yep. Is your dude adverse to work? Again, dudes, because that's what we've dated. And from everything we've seen in stats for failure to launch in particular, it's more dudes than women. So is this person living in their parents' basement at 40? Again, we understand that financial things are really hard. Circumstances are hard, but
Especially
come on.
post-COVID, yeah.
But there are exceptions when it comes to living at home after a certain age. But look for that work-adverse behavior and career aspirations that just aren't rooted in reality. Like, dude, you're not going to be the next YouTube or TikTok star. Just grow the fuck up.
Yeah.
Get a job that makes you miserable like the rest of us. Come on.
Oh, we love our jobs.
I do love my job, actually. We're rare, I think. And, 4, does he try to separate you from your friends or family? We were just talking about this. This is a classic, narcissist move. They want you to depend on them and them only. And it's not right.
Don't abandon
somebody,
me.
Right. Somebody who loves you and they want to be a part of your life. And that means knowing and loving your family and friends, not separating you from these people, so that you have no support system when they abuse you.
Totally.
Right. And so this is really important. Listen to your friends.
Yeah.
Don't be one of those people who share shit with your best friends only to turn around and get mad when your best friends tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Unless you surround yourself with some really fucked up people. Your homies are there to protect you.
Yeah.
And they sense danger. They're your wolf pack. They're going to keep it real. You need to listen.
Yes.
So, I tried to tell Carolyn multiple times, this dude is a chump. He's a sucker. He doesn't give a fuck.
She doesn't know him.
Right. He treats me so well when no one's around.
Yeah.
But that's not true.
Yeah. Well, and I just found friends that would equally enable me.
Yes. Who were also in probably
terribly dysfunctional
relationships. Yep.
So I would even add too, don't be afraid to be on your own.
Yes, I think that's the takeaway here. Don't be afraid to be on your own. If it doesn't feel right, go with your gut.
Yeah.
Our gut is there for a reason. Yep. It's an evolutionary tool that keeps us safe.
Yeah.
And if your gut is telling you this person ain't right, you're right. You're right.
And don't say but they love them. That's a feeling.
Yeah. Right.
It's not even really a feeling.
Right. Right.
There are how many people in this world?
Yeah. Tons. Too many to count.
Yeah.
And I'm too stupid to know the number, but
you're fine. You'll be fine.
Find somebody who treats you well, loves you, wants to be a part of your life and know everything and everyone in your life.
Yeah.
Who you don't have to walk on eggshells around. Yep. You can be your genuine self around. Yeah. You can fart until the cows come home. You can be your disgusting self, free of judgment.
Yep. And ridicule.
We're not going to tell you necessarily don't date the narcissist. Don't date the narcissist. Yeah. But rather date the person that makes you feel good and validates who you are. Right?
And Jen, you know who that person is the most?
Who?
Yourself.
Oh, yeah. Love yourself.
Love yourself.
Oh, we got all hippy-dippy.
Well, because you can't ask someone to love you if you really can't say those things. If you can't be alone with yourself and have a fucking blast, then you got to fix that shit.
I agree. 100%.
Because a quality person is going to want someone who could do that.
Yeah.
Someone who can't handle that won't want that.
I agree.
So.
Yep.
It's an inside job. I'm all about the AA terms tonight.
Job. You really are. That I would say
it works if you work it.
It works if you work it.
Live and let God.
I have not gone through AA.
I've gone through a lot of AA.
That's right. Yeah, we'll save that for another episode. But thank you so much for listening. We will see you next week. Have a great week.
Bye.
And
be safe out there.
Be safe out there. There's a lot of weird shit out there. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.